Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Your Business podcast. And I'm super excited today to be chatting with Kirsten Schmidtke, who is a sales and success coach with equal parts grit, heart, and unstoppable energy. From generating millions in tech sales revenue to breaking through glass ceilings, her journey has been anything but conventional. Today, she empowers high achieving leaders to master authentic sales, scale with intention, and create sustainable success without sacrificing fulfillment. Welcome, Kirsten. I'm so excited to have you on the podcast today.
Yeah, thank you, Amy, for inviting me.
Absolutely. So I know we had met at a High by Women brunch, and then I also got to see you speak and give your presentation at one of the High by Women events. But for our listeners, why don't you share a little bit kind of about how you got started in this journey of sales?
Well, I can tell you probably the moment that I knew things were changing or something was about to shift. The beginning of 2021, I found myself like not wanting to get out of bed, not wanting to work. I was still in a corporate technology sales role. Okay. So I built my career there for about 12, 13 years. And it was, yeah, the beginning of 2021. And I had worked really hard to, get where I was. I felt that I had really clearly communicated where I wanted to go. But over and over and over again, I was not receiving the support that I needed to get there. And I just really felt like so stuck. We talk about the proverbial glass ceiling. I just felt like I was hitting
Yeah.
a brick wall.
Yeah.
And so I sought out a coach. Like I really didn't know what else was available to me for help. And so I got the support of a coach for the first time, and I will give you an abbreviated version of the story, but essentially I had, yeah, built a really great career in corporate. I really loved selling, but I knew that there was something different, something more. I'd had the itch to be entrepreneurial. Grew up with two parents that were self-employed, and so as I discovered coaching, I realized, wow, like there's, mentorship as I've experienced it, and then there's this, like there's a way to really help people to feel happy, to experience change, to take ownership, responsibility of creating their life and creating their results. This is what I want to do. This is what I'm made for. And after starting my practice and leaving corporate, I've now really leaned into owning my place as a coach in sales. That also lends itself to business and to leadership coaching, and it's been, yeah, a really fun ride.
Amazing. And I think it's so refreshing to see too, because I think a lot of times when we think of sales, we think of like stuffy, guy in like the suit, car salesman, like all the ick things that come around that. And you just give such an amazing, refreshing approach to things. And I love how you're building with like intentionality and you're talking about building the life that you want. And like you're not being limited to what's happening in corporate or, what's happening as an entrepreneur. You can actually like build the dream life of your dreams. Right? So, yeah.
Yeah, and I think that was one of the most powerful shifts for me being coached
Yeah.
was up until I worked with my coach, and actually the same coach I did my training with. No one had really ever asked me what I wanted. No
Right.
one had really said, Kirsten, what do you want? What do you want to create? What do you want to experience? And so slowing down and really connecting with who I was and what I most desired, and then putting that into motion and into momentum. Yeah, it was just absolutely transformational for me. And like as you said, yeah, there's another way you could really take ownership of creating your life and be successful in corporate and be successful as an entrepreneur and be successful in raising a family, whatever it might be that really connects to you.
Yes. And so when it comes to the sales side of things, like I think a lot of times people are focused on like the strategy, like, how do I get on the call, like as
Mhm.
entrepreneurs, right? Or like how to close that sale. But I think you incorporate both, like the mindset piece as well as like the energy or the strategy piece. So can maybe you talk a little bit about like the mindset that comes because, there is like the stigma out there that like sales are icky or sales are hard or like the stories that people are telling themselves. So can you maybe share a little bit more around that too?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I always say that without the mindset, strategy doesn't really matter, right?
Right.
If we don't have the growth mindset and open mindset, like belief, right, in what we're doing, then the tactics and tools like we generally don't get to them, or we don't actually follow through on our commitments to taking action. And the reason the mindset piece is so critical as well is every result that we experience, every outcome we want to drive for ourselves, all starts with who we are being. It all connects back to who we are as human beings and who we're becoming, who we are with that goal. We want to start to cultivate and create that. And when I say who we're being includes our thoughts, right? Our
Yes.
feelings, our beliefs. And so that's why the mindset piece is so critical to sales. Because if we want to drive revenue and we want to sell more, we want to grow our businesses, we really need to check in with who we are being first. And that is where the mindset piece comes from. And I believe when we check in there, we can also sell from a place of authenticity. So we are removing that expectation that we need to do it like we've seen it done, or like you said, that
Yes.
idea of more of a traditional seller. If we connect
Yeah.
to who we are, our values, who we're being and who we want to become, then that feels so much more authentic. And so I do spend a lot of time around, sales mindset shifts. I can
Yeah.
offer three that I focus on. Would that be
Yeah,
helpful?
absolutely. That would be,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay. So the three that I really, I guess, the core to my coaching practice and my approach to sales. The first one, well, the myth would be that sales is transactional, right?
Yes.
And I would offer that sales is service.
Yes.
So what I mean by that is when we're selling, we are opening up an opportunity to solve someone's problem, right? To maybe alleviate someone's pain, to make someone's dream come true, because there is someone out there that is a perfect match and fit for what you're selling. And if we're not showing up and sharing what we have to offer, the value that we can provide, the transformation that we can create, we're not being of service. We're actually, I mean, you could argue it almost being selfish, keeping it to ourselves, right? So when we look
Yes.
at sales conversations of being of service, already our mindset, our language, our conversation shifts.
Completely shifts. Absolutely. Yeah.
The second mindset shift I would offer, or myth, I guess I
Yeah.
would bust, is that sales is about you, and that's not true. Sales is about them. And I find this can be hugely helpful for entrepreneurs, because this is where we can get really, really caught up in conversations, is like, but I
Yes.
have to offer something really great, and I have to show value, and I have to prove that I'm good. I have to prove myself. I have to prove it. When we actually, like, it actually has nothing to do with us. It has everything to do with, what does the client need? How are they feeling? What would be helpful to them? Right back to kind of the service piece of it. Like, how can I
Yes.
serve them? So, yeah, stop making sales about you and really make it about them, because when we make it about us, we can often also really overwhelm the client with all the
Absolutely.
things, right, that we can provide and offer. And then the last thing that I'll offer to, like I said, I like to focus on kind of three core areas. And the last one is that sales is leadership, right? Sales isn't pitching, right? Like I said, if we throw too much at the conversation, at the client, it just creates a lot of confusion. And I like to say that clarity closes deals.
Yes.
And so if we really embody sales being leadership, right, rather than pitching, we're leading the client, we're leading them to a solution, we're leading them to something that we feel could really, really support them, to help them, could maybe transform and change their lives. But we stand in that position of leadership, and that can really help us to move the conversation forward, obviously move the sale forward.
Yeah.
And like I said, rather than offering everything that's available to them, we're offering what we really believe can be helpful. And that clarity can really elevate your conversations, but also accelerate your path to signing a client or closing a deal.
Absolutely. I love those 3, and that's such, like, simple shifts and transformations for people to make. Because again, it's, like, making it about the client, because I think when you make it about you, that's when you tend to, like, lose the confidence or t get it, frustrated and all the stories again we tell ourselves. And even you're right, it does help with clarity because I even know within my own business, I was telling people, oh, I could help with this or I could help with that. And then people are like, I don't actually know what you do because you're doing everything. And at the end of the day, I don't necessarily maybe want to be doing everything, but you're losing sight of it because you're so focused on like, how can I make this sale work? Right. Where, yeah, definitely switching it to being of service and like, what does that person need? I think has been such a big transformation to my own business.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. What does that person need? And I really love what you share, because I think so many entrepreneurs struggle with like wanting to be everything to everybody.
Yes.
Right. And there absolutely is an element of experimentation. Like that's what's really fun about building your own business. But over time, if we really want to see our revenue grow, we really want to scale our efforts. Yeah, that clarity, people knowing what you stand for, the results that you drive, they can connect to that, and then it makes it so much easier to buy. Like think about how you
Yes.
buy, right? Like how you buy is also how you sell, which is like a
Yeah.
fascinating thing to think about, right? Like just a simple application of that principle is like, do you pay all up front for,
Right.
maybe investments, or do you take the payment option? Well, if we want clients to pay all up front, then we want to buy the same way, right? And so
Right.
no different. You buy when that communication feels clear. You really understand what that person's up to and what they're going to offer. So we want to sell that way too.
Yeah, that makes sense. I never have really like considered that. Like the and again, you're going to show up more confident and with that clarity because you're offering what feels good to you in your business too by allowing people to either do payment plans if that's what your preference is too.
Yep.
Yeah, thanks.
Yep.
That's a really good tip. So thank you. I also feel like you're really helping entrepreneurs like with building that confidence just because I was in that room when you're giving the presentation and the room was packed with so many female entrepreneurs because I think again, this isn't something that we're taught. A lot of entrepreneurs, we have a passion. We're like, I want to start a business. I want to help people. I want to be of service. And then we figure out everything else. And then sales always tends to be like the last thing that gets solved or figured out, or like, oh, I should maybe, get a better understanding of how to operate this way. So I think what I noticed in that room was like so many women are wanting to make that shift. And I love that this is something that you're offering now for people too.
Yeah, thank
Yeah.
you. I noticed something similar too in conversations I was having, and um how I was, well, even contributing, whether it was in like networking conversations or
Yeah.
whatever it may be, that it became really apparent that people want to be creating driving revenue. Like people want to be creating more in their businesses, but there was just a gap of awareness, of knowledge, and of course of skill set, right? Like it all
Yes.
really kind of comes together. And the biggest thing that's why we talked about it right at the beginning, like the mindset piece, keeping them from investing in that area, or
Yeah.
keeping them from paying more attention or more focus in that, in the sales realm, right?
Yeah.
Get kind of caught up in the mindset of it, of maybe lack of confidence, maybe the story we've told ourselves about sales being icky or just not being for us. But when the truth is, without revenue, we just have like we've got a really nice hobby
Yeah.
that we're right. But if we're not driving revenue, we're not really building a business. And so I appreciate you kind of offering your perspective and being in the
Yeah.
room, because I would agree that entrepreneurs are wanting to sell.
Yes.
They're just wanting to sell in a way that feels good to them, and
Yes.
they're wanting to understand what that looks like and how they can create that.
Absolutely. And shifting the story of like what sales is. And I think that that's what you're doing. And you're making it, this is a part of business. Just like people need to do their bookkeeping, people do their marketing.
Yes.
Sales is just as valuable and the most valuable because, like you said, without sales, you don't have revenue and you have a really pretty hobby, but that's not going to pay the bills. And that's not really helping people and getting your services or your product out into the world.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And the other, like you just said, like that's not really helping people, right? If we're
Yeah.
just kind of keeping it quiet, keeping things running. And you bring up what came up to me when you said that is the importance of selling, because it's also driving profitability, right? And if
Yes.
we increase our profitability, then we can also reinvest in our business, in our delivery, in our offer, in our program, our product, and actually elevate whatever our client or customer is experiencing. And I think it's so important. Like, I love that you said, like, we're not really helping people if we're also not driving revenue in our business.
Yes.
And I love that you said that, because sometimes that can be some of the hang up. That can be some of the story around sales, right? Is I'm
Yes.
greedy or needy or taking money, or right, that like definitely that sense of like, well, yeah, greediness, or like maybe capitalism can come up for
Yeah.
people too as part of the story. But when you think about it, the more cash you infuse into your business, the more you create for everybody. Like, you create opportunity to maybe hire someone, just give somebody a
Absolutely.
job, right?
Yep.
You create an opportunity for your client, again, to have a better experience, maybe an elevated experience, and like upgrade to whatever it is that they're experiencing in their life.
Yes.
And though you also get to continue to invest in yourself, right? Whether that does mean investing in having beautiful things or beautiful
Yep.
experiences, or even in your personal growth and development.
Absolutely, or even giving back within your community. Like, I think again, people are forgetting, like,
100%. Thank
all
you
of the
for
different
highlighting.
ways, like, that you can by you selling and you generating more revenue, it opens the doorway to so many other opportunities that you can do.
Yeah.
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 So I'd love your thoughts around because, typically as solo entrepreneurs, it's like you're the one doing all the selling. So when it comes time though for like someone to hire a team, say that they're wanting to like, okay, I'm ready to grow, I'm ready to scale. Do you recommend like them now hiring somebody else out to like do the sales aspect, or should they still kind of be the face in the center of like doing the sales behind their business?
Yeah. So my perspective on this is sales is the second to last thing that you want to outsource.
Okay.
And the only thing after that is leadership. Like, you're ready to, you know, be a board member and give, after sales, it's the executive, it's a CEO role. And I'll tell you why. Well, one, sales is the fastest way to revenue in your
Yeah.
business, right? Sales is the driver of revenue. Sales is the closest to the revenue, like to cash, right? To driving
Hmm.
cash in your business. And most importantly, no one is going to be as passionate, as connected, as aware um, of what you're building than you are.
Yes.
And when we're selling, we are also, so sales requires a transfer of belief,
Yep.
right? We dial up the belief in what we're up to, and we connect with the client who really also believes. If we don't believe in what we're doing, doesn't really matter if the customer or client believes, right? So that transfer of belief is critical in sales. And so I would offer that as the owner, the founder, the CEO, that you continue to expand, develop your sales skills and your sales conversations. I would offer until you are quite comfortably over the seven-figure mark,
Okay.
so
And
that you are staying, again, you're close to the revenue source, you're
right.
close to customer and client. Because while sales, yes, sales, we want we want to sign and bring in and acquire new customers.
Right.
And we also get a frontline seat to what we could improve, what we could do better, how we can improve the client experience. And so you have a direct line into that feedback as well, when we're still owning the sales process as the owner, the business owner, or the
Yeah.
CEO. So for all of those reasons, I do really encourage entrepreneurs to own the sales cycle, own those sales conversations. The other thing too is, when you start to get to that size and that scale, I would imagine there's other aspects of your business, like you've got admin in place, you've got operations
Yep.
in place, you probably have marketing in place. So
Yep.
now you can start to build a sales process to guide, lead, hire someone into. If we kind of bring someone into sales too quickly without really understanding how our sales process works, or that mechanism works,
Yeah.
that can really stall and slow down. our sales and our revenue targets.
Right. Well, and you just as you were talking, brought up a good point too, because like you said, you're still kind of front line. So you're able to notice the gaps, like you said, in the client experience, but it's also kind of market research because you can be using the language now that, the client's saying to you that you could now be using turning around for your marketing efforts as well, too. So I think that's such a really good point that was kind of coming through as you were sharing that.
I love that. So take this away, by the way. Amy just said, like, if you are listening in those sales conversations, right, then your feet are on the ground, you're hearing that feedback, you can use that in your marketing efforts. 100%. One of the best sources of marketing material is objections.
Absolutely. Yes. And
Right? Like,
using it
what
in
are
their
the objections?
language, right?
Yeah.
So, yes.
What is holding people back from saying yes to you? Awesome. Create content around that. Create marketing
Yes.
around that, right? Get like, you can start to create, yeah, objection handling type of content that really has your clients or potential clients and customers thinking before they even have a sales conversation with you.
Right, or they already kinda know the answer now too,
Yeah.
right? Because you're like, "Oh, okay, well, I was holding off, but now they've just said to me this is one of the things that they offer or they don't offer, so this is giving me as the potential client clarity now around, like, what it would be like to work with you too."
Yeah. 100%.
Yeah. So, is there any common mistakes that you kinda see people make then when it comes maybe from, like, even the strategy side of things when it comes to sales or doing some sales calls?
Yeah, really good question. I think the number one thing I would offer is, and we talked a little bit about the mindset, a piece
Yeah,
about, being about the client versus being about us. And if we adopt that mindset, it puts us into the seat of listening more than we're speaking. And I am 100% guilty of speaking way too much in sales conversations. I'm always checking myself. I wish someone had told me this, by the way earlier in my sales career. But we definitely want to be listening more than we're speaking. And the best, fastest, easiest way to do that is simply to ask more questions. So that would be the first thing that I would offer, is to listen more and to speak less. Another thing that I would offer is, there's kind of, people underestimate having a sales process, like really having something that connects the dots between lead, right? Like, marketing has brought
yep,
you a lead. Now, how do I invite them into a sales conversation and through a sales process that leads to, like, that closes the deal?
right.
So, my area of focus and expertise is in B2B or business to business type sales,
Yep,
and typically more high ticket types of sales where we
right.
want to nurture a relationship, create trust, right? We want to guide, again, we talked about sales being leadership. We want to guide clients to what we feel would really align to what it is that they need. And so we need a sales process that is clear on what our standards are, right? So we know if they're a fit for us, that we're a fit for them. We know what our offer is. We're super clear on how we communicate that. We're clear on how we engage in the conversation. Like I said, like, there is an art in asking questions, right? So really
Yes.
involving that in your process. What does the follow up look like? And how do you close the deal, right? There's a lot of nuance in that process too. I hear clients, I'll offer this because I've heard this a few times. People have asked me, like, I send the proposal and then I get ghosted,
Right.
right? Like, we have the call, they
Yep.
say yes, I send the
Yep.
proposal, and then it's a no. And it's like, okay, well, there is something in that process that got
Disconnect.
missed.
Yep.
Yeah. So we either didn't ask really good questions to get really good information to see if there was a fit.
Yep.
We maybe missed some objection handling because there's something that they're still not sure about if they haven't,
Mhm.
if they're leaving you hanging, so to speak.
Yes.
And though there's also something we're missing in that last call or last conversation, that is, like, we've left the loop open if they're
Right.
not signing, submitting, and paying you, within whatever 24 hours or whatever your terms are.
Right.
um, and so I've been asked before, like, then is it like a hard close or a soft close, right? Like, how do you choose to
Yeah.
close? And so what I like to say is, you want to close the loop. Like, that's the best thing I can offer. Without having people live here to coach, is that we just
Right.
want to close the loop. So, you know, the client's agreeing to paying or the client, we need to get on another call, whatever it is, we just want to be really, really clear on that next step. And so that's another, I guess, challenge or yeah, mistake I see people make is without the
Yeah.
process and then understanding like that it's not magic that, you're pulling it out of thin air when it comes to closing the deal, but
Yeah.
it is a bit of there is a nuance there to really feel connected to the conversation, connected to the client, and then connected to the closing of the loop, or else we end up with these
Right.
energy leaks, which can be really frustrating.
Right. And I like how you talk. Obviously, I love processes. So I like how you're sharing that as well, too, because I think it could even be maybe it was like the proposal that you sent, like it wasn't meeting the expectations of like how everything else on the sales call sounded amazing. And then you're sending them like a Word document for your proposal. They're like, okay, something here isn't connecting. Right. So I think it's such a really good point that you bring up is to like look at the entire process and making sure that it's one like an elevated one for the client experience and then it's also like following your steps that like make sense for the client too to follow through with.
Exactly. And I, you bring up a really good example because I know I said at the beginning of the process is knowing your standards, right?
Yeah.
And like one of my standards is for like if I'm doing a workshop, let's say, with a corporation, and I've put together a proposal after a discovery call, one of my standards is that proposal gets delivered in a conversation
Right.
and then I send it.
Yes.
Exactly to your point, right? Because what I heard may not be what they're expecting. What
Right.
I have seen work and what outcomes I have driven may like maybe they've since thought about something else and actually that happened to me recently. We actually cut the proposal in half because for actually the client it was going to be too much. It just
Right.
felt a little overwhelming, right? And so
Yeah.
we made some tweaks and sure enough like signed, scheduled, and off we go. And I think that's a really, really good point is like, even just around proposals, like, what is your standard? What is your process? And I'll offer that if you are selling higher ticketed items and you're sending proposals out there, I would 100% present your proposal on a call and then
Okay.
send it. It might need to be amended depending how the
Yeah.
call goes, because that could be, yeah, absolutely, that could be where your proposals are going to die. Is they're just falling into someone's inbox? They're either not being reviewed, or they're being reviewed and thrown away because they're not aligned.
Okay, that's some really good points. So thank you for sharing that too. And so you had mentioned that, you do help support with like higher ticket sales when it comes to like supporting your clients and stuff. So I know sometimes high ticket sales can feel like an intimidating process for people. So is there anything that you find that is like helpful for people that are wanting to sell higher ticket items? Is that kind of I know that sounds like that's one of your babies, one of the things that you're really good at helping support people with.
Yeah, really good. I mean, the first thing I would always remind people to focus on is the value. Value first, not the bells and whistles, features,
Yeah.
functional, always the value. And um that will round it out. Like that will make it feel more whole if that language
Yeah.
lands. When we're looking at more of the value and the experience and the transformation. Because what can happen is the numbers get bigger. We think we have to like add all these other little things, and
Right.
it's not true. We want to look at what is it that the client, again, making it about them. What is the
Yeah.
client going to experience or receive? And is that change, transformation, and alignment with the number that you're offering, right? So I would really think about. I also like to offer people to like the energy that you're putting behind the number,
Yes.
right? When you get into high ticket sales, it's often because you're also coming with more energy and intention. Like think about how like whatever product, service, whatever it is that you're offering out there, if you think about how you would show up if you cut your rate in half or your price in half, and think how you show up if you doubled your price or rate. Like,
Totally.
right? Like already,
Yes.
like you can feel that shift. Just think no matter where you are in your business building journey or what product or service you're selling. So that just that energy shift, I think that's one thing. So focus on the value, think about the energy that you get behind when it is a bigger number, and then the last thing I would offer is it's just a number. I know it sounds
That's
so simple, but like think about it. A phone number has a lot of numbers in it, but we don't think of it as being expensive or meaning something. It's just a
right.
phone number, right? And so if you are looking to expand your services, increase your rates, the best thing you can do is just practice the number on rote as if it was a telephone number. And so when you do have to say, not have to say it, when it does
No,
come
but
time
yeah.
to share it or say it, it just comes to you so much more naturally because you've let all that meaning go and
Yes.
let the number just be what it is.
Oh, I love that. That's such a great tip. It's now I'm always going to be thinking of a telephone. I'm like, it's just a number, just a telephone number, right? And it's such a good point because you're right. We put so much like effort and meaning behind things. So, and you're right. We think as soon as we have like a higher number, need to add all these value and we need to tick, 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 like, I'm going to put this in, this and this in. And it, I think, loses that credibility of like the actual value instead of just giving stuff to like
A
part of
hundred
it.
percent. And check in on why you're doing that. Because sometimes
Right.
what happens is there's we gotta like go back in and go, okay, is this like a work like there's I need to prove my worth. Like again, you're making it about you, right? Like I need to add more things because then it proves credibility. Well, like what you said is actually creating complication and maybe doing the opposite for the client. And you just reminded me as well, like, I get a question sometimes around like selling in corporate, like how that
Right.
was um like did you like how'd you feel when you started, like did
Yeah.
these things come up for you? And what's so interesting was when you're selling in an organization is like it's not personal, like it never was
No.
personal, so you don't make it personal, so you send out a quote for $500,000 and you're like, okay, see ya, like next, like you just like
Yeah.
right and
It's
like
just
you
part of your day. It's part of your routine. You don't even
yeah,
think twice about it.
exactly.
Yes.
Exactly. And so, I mean, on one side, it's such a gift that some of these numbers have completely been normalized over 15 years of being a sales pro. But
Yes.
on the other hand, I would also offer that as a way of thinking about it too. Like if you stand behind you as the business, not you as the person, human being who is put
Yes.
their blood, sweat, and tears, but if you stand behind the business, imagine yourself as the 7, 8 figure founder who does have a salesperson, right?
Yeah.
They're not going to bat their eye at this higher ticket price because
No.
that's what we offer as a business, as an organization. And so I, separating it again, being about you and what you're offering and being more about what they're receiving it just creates some space and distance that can make that number feel less overwhelming.
Yes, that's a really good point of like really like removing that kind of distance because I think it's true. We put our heart and soul as like entrepreneurs, right? So, and again, I think typically as females, we tend to be more like nurturing and wanting to like really give and serve. So I think you bring up such a really good point of like having that distance and it doesn't mean anything about you. It's just, it's again a fact. Like, okay, you didn't close a sale. What do I need to do differently? You closed it. Amazing. Great. What worked this time? Let's do more of that kind of thing.
Yeah. You just hit the nail on the head. I love that. You're like, it's a fact,
Yes.
right? And that's it. Like your price is a fact. What is the story? Like I always say like fact or fiction, right? Like
Right.
is like the fact is this is the price you're charging. The fiction is all the meaning that you're putting on top of it. So we just really want to get clear on what's fact and what's fiction. And that can really help to calm the nerves too. As well as, like you said, seeing the opportunity for learning and growth, right? What worked, what didn't work. Great. More of that, less of that.
Yes, absolutely. Okay, so what's on the horizon for you now? I know you hosted like a workshop recently, but where else can people kind of find and connect with you? Because I know you're a wealth of knowledge, and I know that our listeners can definitely benefit from connecting with you.
Yeah, absolutely. So I love to hang out on Instagram and on LinkedIn, and you can find me in both of those places with my full name, Kirsten Schmidtke. I'm always sharing. That's where you get like the pretty fast updates. I mean, if you want to go to the website, subscribe to the newsletter, you're always the first to know about things that are coming up and happening. But I really do love to show up on Instagram and show behind the scenes of what life looks like in this world called entrepreneurship, as well as offer some good sales tips, some sales strategies, some tools that you can implement into your business as well. One tool that comes to mind that has been really helpful for clients of mine is my outreach system.
Right.
I really believe that sales is so when you're being a professional seller, you're active in the selling, right? Being of service requires action, requires activity. You're being active, right?
Yes.
Passive selling is order taking. It's not
Right.
really selling. Like passive selling is click, buy, go, right? We have not actually been part of, done an awesome job, don't get me wrong, with our marketing
Right.
and our branding. But when we want to sell and we want to really grow our sales, outreach can be so powerful in like it just, yeah, it changes the game, right?
Right.
Referrals super helpful, right? But outreach can be really transformational for businesses. So I've created what I call my outreach system that just gives you basically an outline of what to follow. And it's not about cold calling, it's not about talking to strangers. It actually, spoiler alert, it starts with everyone you know,
Yes.
and all the people that are within your network. So anyway, if you want access to that tool, you just DM me. Actually, DM me Amy on Instagram or on LinkedIn, because I'll know that it was from my conversation with Amy, and I'll know what tool to send you. So yeah, if that outreach system would be helpful, feel free to send me a DM on either social platform.
Okay, amazing. And I'll be sure to include in the show notes where they can find you and then to DM Amy and then they can get all the amazing tips. So thank you so much for being here. It was such a pleasure chatting with you and connecting with you again. And I know there's so much value. So thank you again.
Yeah, thank you.